507-1047, toll free, and our webpage is www.warroom.com. I want to remind you we're going to be at Dean Diamond Importers this Friday night in the Butler area at the Clearview Mall. We'll see you out there. All right, now, the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing was yesterday, April 19th, having a checkered past, for those of you who are students of history. And yesterday was the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. Now, you remember the bombing, and you remember the first day it was being blamed on Islamo-fascists until various organizations, I suppose, like the Council on American Islamic Relations, picked up the phone and called the Democrats, and until the White House decided that, wait a minute, this isn't going to be... Here, it'd be much better if it'd be a bunch of European white guys who voted Republican in the last election and blew us out. Who are these people that fear their government? Who are they? Remember that? Yeah. That's that Rush Limbaugh guy. He did it. I'll tell you what. It was him. He blew up that building. So anyway, but the sudden turn, if you remember, from looking into the Islamic connection to the Oklahoma City bombing, suddenly turned to Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh. On the phone with us this morning, two very good friends. First, friend number one, David Shippers, one of the last great Democrats, hard-nosed prosecutor from Chicago. He and his lovely wife, Jackie, have been friends of this show and friends of ours for a long time. And a former reporter for KFOR television in Oklahoma City, Jayna Davis, who has written a book called The Third Terrorist. Now, you all heard that there was no John Doe number 2. Well, not so fast. Good morning, you two. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning, David.
Jim. How you doing?
Yeah, we're doing just fine. It's nice to have you on the show. There's going to be a whole bunch of new people in Akron, Canton, Cleveland, and down in West Virginia and Wheeling and the surrounding area of the Ohio Valley are going to be hearing you probably for the first time.
That's great, and congratulations on getting syndicated. It's about time.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it very much. And Rose sends her love. Now, Jayna, tell us the story of Oklahoma City from the beginning, because, again, a lot of people don't know. They only know what the media has told them.
Well, actually, I was part of that media back in 1995 when the bombing occurred. I was an investigative reporter for the NBC affiliate KFOR TV, and I was one of the first correspondents on the scene of the Murrah Building bombing. And after I finally got over the shock and the horror, and then I just snapped into automated mode, I started doing my reporting, and within 24 hours, my news director came to me and said, Jayna, I want you to cover the manhunt for the bombers. And I thought, well, that's crazy, because as you just said, all eyes were trained on the Middle East within the first 48 hours. So all I had to go on was that there was an official FBI all-points bulletin. It was very specific for a brown Chevrolet pickup with tinted windows, a smoke-colored bug deflector, and 2 Middle Eastern men inside that truck. And not just 2 Middle Eastern men, foreigners. They had so much detail in this all-points bulletin, Quinn. They even knew that there was gray in the beard of one of these suspects. They knew their age ranges. And they were dressed uniformly, exactly the same in blue jogging suits. So this is what I had to go on. And I sat down and I just started manning the telephones. And I got to tell you, you know this as well as I do, there's a lot of people that come out of the woodwork in an international terrorism event of this magnitude. They want their 15 minutes of fame. So I was sifting through a sea of false leads, and I had one tip to the newsroom that got my attention. It was an anonymous caller who I later met in person, and he said he worked for a property management company in Oklahoma City, owned and operated by a Palestinian immigrant who 6 months before the bombing, all of a sudden these Iraqi soldiers from the Persian Gulf War show up on the doorstep. And a few days before the bombing, there's a brown Chevrolet pickup with tinted windows and a bug shield parked outside that business. 2 witnesses say they've seen it. So I say, okay, it's worth my time. I'm going to start digging a little bit. Here's what I found out. I pulled court records. The man that owned that property management company, $4 million worth of Section 8 houses in all the crime-ridden neighborhoods in the heart of Oklahoma City, had his company headquarters a few dozen blocks north of the burned-out Murrah Building. According to federal court records, back in the early 1990s, this Palestinian pled guilty to federal insurance fraud. and he was suspected by the FBI at the time of having ties to the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And the FBI didn't understand where this man got millions of dollars to buy up all these low-income houses. He claimed his money was coming from donations from siblings living in Baghdad, Iraq. Now, on the day of the bombing, these Iraqi soldiers that this Palestinian ex-con hired 6 months before the bombing, when the first radio reports that Islamic extremists had claimed credit for the attack on the Murrah building came out right there on the job site, these American co-workers are looking at these Middle Eastern men, and they start cheering deliriously. They're giving each other high fives, and they're saying, "We love Saddam, we'll die for Saddam." And they're saying it in English, and they're chanting it. And it's unabashed, and they don't care that they have witnesses to this. Those men, my research shows, were absent from work on April 17th, the day that Timothy McVeigh rented the truck that carried the bomb. From there, I have spanned out across the city of Oklahoma City. I've interviewed nearly 80 potential witnesses. I whittle it down to 22 credible witnesses because the veracity of their testimonies have been independently corroborated, and more important than that, the stories they're telling do not conflict in any way with the government's timeline of the movements of Tim McVeigh and Terry Nichols prior to the bombing. Here's what I have found. Oklahomans, under oath, in 80 pages of detailed affidavits, positively identify 8 Middle Eastern men working for that property management company, the majority of whom are former Iraqi soldiers who came to the United States, my research shows, as false defectors. Those Iraqi soldiers have been seen with Tim McVeigh and Terry Nichols during various stages of the plot to blow up the Murrah building. One of those soldiers in particular is Hussein Hassam al-Husseini. He not only matched the FBI's physical description, but the profile sketch of the infamous John Doe, too. Now, witnesses identify this man in the company of McVeigh prior to the bombing, seated in the passenger seat of the Ryder truck the morning of the bombing, stepping out of that truck at ground zero in front of the ill-fated Murrah building moments before that bomb went off, and speeding away from downtown seconds after the blast in a brown Chevrolet pickup which matched the FBI's teletype for a getaway vehicle that was occupied by foreign suspects. Now, Colonel Patrick Lang, who is the former chief of human intelligence for the Defense Intelligence Agency, this man was the chief consultant to the United States military and the commander-in-chief during the First Persian Gulf War. He thoroughly vetted and researched the immigration file of the man, the Iraqi suspect Hussein al-Husseini, who has been identified as the third terrorist, John Doe 2. This is what he tells me. The military tattoo, the background information of Hussein al-Husseini indicates he served in Saddam Hussein's elite Republican Guard and was most likely promoted into Unit 999 of the Iraqi intelligence service, the Eskabarat, which was based in Salman Park, southeast of Baghdad, and tasked with overseas clandestine operations. Now, here's where your listeners are going to be shocked. Guess where Hussein al-Husseini went when he left Oklahoma City after the bombing? He went on to Boston, Massachusetts. He was gainfully employed by the Boston Logan International Airport. And in November of 1997, this is now 4 years before 2 planes are hijacked from that very airport and slam into the World Trade Center, this man, Hussein al-Husseini, starts having anxiety attacks, so he goes to his psychiatrist. And in a private conversation he never thinks will be disclosed to a third party, he says he's apprehensive about his airport job because if something were to happen there, quote, I'll be a suspect. Now, the FBI has never questioned this man, and despite my repeated attempts and the attempts of other journalists throughout the years knocking on the door, will you officially clear him and exonerate him of any suspicion in the Oklahoma City bombing? They won't do it. And you want to know why, Clint?
Yeah.
In my book, it is irrefutable. This is evidence that could be entered in a court of law, and a jury, I believe, would see that it's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt he has no alibi for the critical hour of April 19th, 1995. Therefore,
but if I can interrupt for just a second, Jim, he tried to fabricate an alibi, which is always one of the best indications of guilt.
Yeah, and did he not? He fabricated that, and did you not write an article about that? And he tried to sue you?
Here's what happened. KFOR TV broke our story on June 7th of 1995. Within 1 week, the firestorm of reaction. We were getting calls from the New York Times, the Washington Post. People were absolutely on fire. Was John Doe 2 an Iraqi suspect? Within 1 week, the Department of Justice comes out and says, oh, it's all a case of mistaken identity. And then John Doe 2, over the years, is declared dead. Then he's resurrected. He's dead. He's resurrected. Now, we went forward with our stories at KFOR. We weren't following conventional PAC journalism. When John Doe 2 was declared a case of mistaken identity, this soldier, Hussein al-Husseini, comes forward. Instead of talking to me, despite my repeated request to interview him, he goes to the competing media. He identifies himself. And the politically correct media comes running to his rescue. And he says he's been falsely accused. But he also goes on the airwaves and he carps about the fact that the United States Department of Justice refuses to officially clear him in the bombing. Here's what it is, Clint. They cleared hundreds of men who were collared because they had a slight resemblance to the sketch of John Doe 2. He then, a few months later, after we are hammering our stories night after night after night, that there is another man involved in the Oklahoma City bombing, he files a lawsuit. He gets a phone call and he is told he has a lawyer that's been chosen by him. And there's a Washington, D.C. organization, which he refused to name, that is telling him, you need to carry on this lawsuit. I believe that organization funded this lawsuit. But he lost. He absolutely shouldn't have done it because he gave me the power of discovery. I got to put him in 8 days of deposition. And during that time, he unwittingly confessed to details that only the man who was drinking beer with McVeigh prior to the bombing and the witness who served him that beer could have known. And in 1999, the Western District Court of Federal Court of Oklahoma threw out his case and established as undisputed fact all 50 statements of fact and opinion that implicated this man in the bombing and, more importantly, completely shattered his alibi. He appealed to the 10th Circuit. The oral arguments for his right to have a trial were heard on September 10th, 2001, the eve of 9/11. 18 months later, 3-judge panel throws out this case and affirms my reporting across the board.
My sources tell me that McVeigh was found with a pocket full of Iraqi phone numbers when they picked him up. Was that true?
Absolutely true.
I think it was true, too. Dave and I, the research we've had when we've gone to Washington, I can honestly tell you that I believe that was true. Yes.
By the way, one of our best friends in Washington was Bob Barr. I understand he was on your show yesterday.
Yeah, he was right here in the studio.
What a wonderful person he is. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, he really is. But did you want to tie him into this, or?
Oh no!
Oh, okay.
He was one of the. We went out to Washington, Jayna and I, and her husband Drew, and a couple other people, and we met with Bob's people, and he was the only congressman that would listen to us. And he was, there was very little he could do at that time because we didn't have all the facts in line. But all of this information. In 1997, Jayna tried to give it to the FBI. Tell them that story.
Well, I'll tell you what. We have to take a break. You can tell us the story when you come back, okay? Can we keep you guys for the whole hour?
Yeah. I can stay till 7:40.
Yeah, okay. That's about right with me too.
All right, well that's fine. We'll do that then.
We can always come back, Jim.
We're talking to Jayna Davis, who is the author of the book The Third Terrorist, John Doe #2, Hussein al-Husseini. I've been telling you that for 3 years here on this show. And also David Shippers, the impeachment prosecutor for the House of Representatives in the impeachment of William Jefferson Clinton.
Quinn and Rose on America's Morning Show.
And we are with David Shippers and Jayna Davis, author of the book, The Third Terrorist. We only got a couple of minutes in this break. Want to keep you through the news. But tell us, what happened when you tried to go to the Justice Department? What happened when you tried to give them your evidence?
Well, in 95, KFOR TV, we shared everything with some very decent agents that were very interested. In fact, I worked with one agent on investigating the third terrorist, his alibi. After they started, John Doe 2 faded from the legal landscape. It was exercising futility. In 97, I left the station. I was expecting my child, and I decided I didn't want to be part of broadcast news anymore. But by September of 97, on the eve of Terry Nichols' federal trial, I had amassed 22 witness statements from people who could positively identify Middle Eastern men aiding and abetting McVeigh and Nichols. I had hundreds of pages of corroborative evidence, including some classified intelligence reports. Set an appointment with an FBI agent to take receipt of the evidence. He said, come on down. Took a friend of mine who's a notary. We went down there. I handed him the box of documents, and then I said, would you sign this little receipt here that she's going to notarize that you took this evidence? He said, I don't have a problem with that. He says, but I better check with our legal department. 20 minutes later, he comes back into the lobby, and he said, we can't take your evidence. I said, why? Well, the Department of Justice told my attorney as lead prosecutor for Terry Nichols' federal trial, an assistant U.S. attorney out of Washington, D.C., in Denver, Colorado, told my attorney, Tim McCoy, we do not want any more documents for discovery that we will have to turn over to the defense teams. In 1999, I returned to the FBI. I had new information that the Iraqi terrorist cell that I had been studying and investigating for several years had ties to Osama bin Laden. In 99, we had just seen, a few months prior to that, African embassy bombings. Bin Laden was now a household word for the first time. They were saying on the evening news that he could strike again. I find out from one of my informants inside this cell that these men are exhibiting the same suspicious pattern of behavior they did before the Oklahoma City bombing. So I decide it's time to get to the FBI. It's their job to look this over. A very courageous agent, Agent Dan Vogel, took my evidence, prioritized the witness affidavit, said Jayna...
Well, I'm going to have to stop you there, Jayna, because we're running out of time.
They fixed it. They never followed through. They never, ever talked to one witness.
It's amazing, isn't it? We're going to talk more about this right after the news. Jayna Davis and David Shippers. We'll be back. From the War Room, the Quinn of the Morning Show with the lovely Radio Rose, America's Morning Show. Let's get back to David Shippers and Jayna Davis here, because I got so many questions and there's so little time here. So let's get to the phone. Hold on a second while I grab my mouse. All right, good morning, guys. We are back. Okay, you there? Okay, hold on.
Jim, ask her about Spectre.
Yeah, well, Arlen Specter was supposed to take all this evidence and look into it. Of course, I call him the Undertaker. Because, you know, whenever it comes to an investigation, he's happy to take the evidence, dig a big hole, and put it in there.
Boy, that happened to me.
I knew that was going to happen. I could have told you that.
Well, I knew when I was walking in the door. The former Deputy Director of Counterterrorism, Larry Johnson, and the former Chief of Human Intelligence, Colonel Patrick Lang, assisted me, and we went into Specter's offices, and we were on WPHT radio in Philadelphia. We briefed him. And he felt obligated to go through the motions of acting like he was interested. Mm-hmm. So the FBI comes in, and they give him a confidential briefing, and then his chief of staff for the 9/11 investigation fires off a letter with 6 questions for the FBI, and the FBI writes back, and this is a letter that Dave and I have studied, and I have addressed it fully in Chapter 11 of my book. It's stunning. It is replete with, outright lies.
Yeah, bare-faced lies.
I mean, it's incredible, and I can refute it with both hands behind my back. And it's funny because I wasn't supposed to get the letter. Specter was not even going to allow me to address what the FBI said. Then he went on the radio as the Operation Iraqi Freedom was beginning, and he said, "Well, the dots just didn't connect,"
which is nuts.
So I wrote a book.
That's a bunch of crap. Of course they connect.
Yeah. This is how they connect, Mr. Specter. So that was a sham. But let me tell you that this book got the attention of the 9/11 Commission last week. Commissioner John Lehman actually had the book right there as the former director of the FBI, Louis Freeh, was testifying.
Yeah, but as Jack Cashel pointed out, he shouldn't have been asking Louis Freeh. He should have been asking Jamie Gorelick these questions. Yeah. Because it turns out that she was the big handler. You know, if Betsy Wright was the bimbo the bimbo eruption lady to go to. It looks like Jamie Gorelick was the terrorism eruption bimbo.
She was there. That's her job. And now she's judging herself.
Right, and now she's on the commission, and nobody...
Yeah,
this is
interrupt
stunning.
For a second. Jayna's going to have to cut off, but if you want to have your guy give me a call, I can pick it up in the next segment if you want me to.
Well, yeah, I would like you to stay, because there's some other things I want to ask you.
You're going to have to call me, because Jayna set this one up, so it'll...
all right. I'll tell you what, we're going to... we'll put you on hold, because here, look, I want to ask you some things about, first of all, who in the government does not want the connection to Saddam Hussein to be tied to Oklahoma? You would think in this administration that would be nirvana at a time like this, to be able to connect Hussein to Oklahoma City. You think they would be banging the door down to get this.
That's right.
And so I want to know, is it a conspiracy, or is it a case of just a bunch of, second-level bureaucrats who, case closed, it's done, we don't want to mess with it, we don't want to look like in hindsight that we screwed up, we just want to protect our jobs, we want to protect our government pensions, whether it's that or what it is?
Well, it's fully addressed in Chapter 17 of my book. It's a prior warning that was issued by a House Republican task force, and the Republicans knew about it as well, and they ignored it, and everybody's afraid of liability. You arrest one Middle Eastern man, and that congressional task force warning was accurate that there would be an Iran-sponsored Islamic attack to strike the heart of the U.S. It's all about self-perpetuation. It's all about how it would spin in the next election. We had problems on both sides of the aisle when Dave and I tried to get something done about this.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Yeah. Jayna, thanks for joining us this morning. David, I'm going to put you on hold.
All right. I'll give your guy my number here.
All right. Well, I can't. You don't want the number to go over the air, do you? No, of course not. Okay. Well, all right. I'm going to take your pot down, and we're going to take the break here, and then we'll come back, because there's a ton of other stuff I want to ask you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We're talking to David Shippers. Thank you, Jayna Davis, author of the book The Third Terrorist, already climbing the New York Times bestseller list. Go get it. It is absolutely fascinating. I mean, most of you people out there don't have a clue as to any of this stuff. It's stunning stuff.
Quinn and Rose on America's Morning Show.
All right, Jayna Davis has had to leave because of other prior commitments, but that doesn't matter, because David Shippers has worked very closely with Jayna over the years on this book project and on the whole Oklahoma issue. And, and I have so many things to ask. One of the things that drives me nuts, David, is that for political purposes, there are lines of demarcation being drawn out there between the war on terror and the war in Iraq, as though they are not related.
Right.
And to my way of thinking, despite evidence that Mohammed Atta, who pulled off 9/11, was meeting with meeting in Prague with Iraqi intelligence and all this. There's plenty of information out there, really, if you look for it, to tie these two together. To me, to say that there's no relation between Iraq and the war on terror is like saying there's no relationship between the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico.
Absolutely. You're right on the nose.
It is all part and parcel of an area of the country that has a few things in common, and one of them is they hate modernity. They have a religion that gives them the moral authority to kill it rather than compete with it, and they are all of one mind in one way or another. They got a problem with this country, they got a problem with Western civilization, and they'll work with anybody who has the same problem they do.
Well, Jim, if you look at it and think about it, when did the terror attacks start? When did the first attack on the Twin Towers occur? Everything started after the Gulf War. Do you realize that?
Yeah.
And after Saddam Hussein swore vengeance against the United States. Now, people say, why didn't they take credit? They knew who was doing this. They didn't have to take credit.
Oh, listen.
They knew that if he came out after the first tower bombing, or if he came out after Khobar Towers or any of those and said, there, guys, this is what I'm doing to you, that we'd have had to go to war. He took a shot at the former president of the United States, and Clinton yawned.
Well, yeah, he tried to assassinate Bush.
Right, and when the first attack took place in New York, Clinton said, "Let's not overreact." I heard your listener who came up with a theory on why they didn't want to have this, why they had that big wall. We can call it the Gorelick Wall now. Yeah,
the Gorelick Wall of separation between intelligence and criminal investigation.
And I'll tell you, when I heard that listener, I thought, good grief, that is probably one of the reasons.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out, why wouldn't they investigate? And
well, by the way, for those of you who didn't hear the theory that was posited by this listener, and by the way, I understand that other talk show hosts, including I think it was Bortz and also Hannity, were thinking the same thing, or else they were listening to the archives of the show here. But the bottom line is, they were thinking that Gorelick was part and parcel of building that wall because it was 1995, and they knew where the intelligence was going from the Commerce Department through John Wong, and they knew that when it came time to finance the 96 campaign, they were going to put upon those people in China who had received illicit information from the Commerce Department through John Wong, they were going to put upon those people to say, okay, now pay up and give us campaign money. And they needed to build that wall really high so that, what would be more investigatable by a combination of intelligence and criminal investigation than Commie-gate?
I wonder how much, I would very much like to see what the intelligence side picked up during those periods that was never turned over to any criminal investigators. You know, that stuff's got to still be there. I can't understand what somebody has got to get to the bottom of this. They've got this three-ring circus going on out there with the 9/11. Who's at fault? Who's at fault? Good Lord! If they'd done in 1995 what they did after 9/11, the towers would still be there.
Oh, absolutely.
We would have been in Iraq in 1995.
Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. What Bush is being excoriated for right now is what the National Security Council proposed that we do back in the middle of the Clinton administration, and they didn't do it.
That's right.
It's absolutely stunning. Now, I want to get back to Oklahoma just for a minute here.
Sure.
It seems to me that in our conversations in the past, you hinted that Mohammed Atta, who was the guy who flew the plane into the first tower, had been seen in and around the Oklahoma City area. Is that true?
Yeah.
Or am I...
No, you're right on it. He was seen together with Zachariah Moussaoui and another individual at the same motel which McVeigh and al-Husseini and the other Arabs stayed. This came out recently, and what it was is that the guy called Jayna because the FBI wasn't interested in talking to him again, and he told her that... 3 Arabs came in there to his motel in August of about August of 2001, and they wanted to rent a room with cooking privileges. He didn't have one available, but he said to them, "Why are you coming here if you're going to be taking flight in Norman? That's 60 miles away." And they said, "Well, we've heard a lot of good about your place." He talked to them for 20 minutes. He positively identified Moussaoui and Atta as 2 of the individuals. Now, the amazing thing is originally we were thinking, well, that couldn't be because Moussaoui wasn't in Oklahoma City. But we found out later that he was. So, I mean, there it is.
How did Oklahoma City get to be the hotbed of terrorist support in this country anyway?
Well, they have a big... group of that's where those Iraqis went. See, that's what they do, Jim. If they come into New York City or Pittsburgh and they set up one of these things, someone's going to spot them. So what they do is they go out into a small area. They want to bomb Chicago, they go to Bloomington, Illinois or something. They want to bomb New York, they might go up into Long Island someplace. And what they do is they open up a place, and this place employs all the future bombers. They go in there, they integrate into the community, and then as soon as when the word comes, then they do their job. Oklahoma City was a hotbed of for these Iraqis that came ostensibly fleeing from Hussein, but really
you can pin some of that on George H.W. Bush.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
He let them all in.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've made so many mistakes after winning that war. You know, it's amazing to me to hear critics of George W. Bush say that his father should have gone and gotten Saddam Hussein, and we wouldn't have the problem we have now. But if you remember, it was the coalition we were afraid was going to break down.
That's right.
If we did that, the coalition, the Democrats now tell us that we absolutely have to have in order to have an authority to be in Iraq, is the same coalition that prevented us from going and getting this son of a bitch when it was time to go get him, and we wouldn't be where we are right now. Everything can be traced to liberal capitulation.
That's exactly right. We did in 1991 what they want us to do now. And in 1991, we blew it. Now the Democrats and the liberals want us to blow it again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's it's just the whole thing. I was on a show the other day with Jayna, and there was a liberal guy on there, and boy was he liberal, and he was attacking her, saying, "Why wouldn't President Clinton want a war? Man, if he knew about Oklahoma City, he would be able to be absolutely certain of re-election." I said, "Yeah." Well, the hero, when they hit the towers, he didn't do anything. When the problem in Mogadishu, he ran like a scared rabbit. And this hero, he was yellow. That's his problem. And besides that, I don't think he wanted anybody to know where the money was going from Saddam Hussein, because I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of it went right into his pocket.
Well, I'll tell you something. There are some people out there floating the notion now that the Oil for Food program may have been funding Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
As well as France.
Yeah. And I don't know where else that money went. Look, if you're going to look around for people who are easily bribable, I can give you the first suggestion, and that's the former President of the United States. All you had to do was show money, and you got what you wanted. Well,
one does have to wonder, what do you get in exchange for 50 years of nuclear technology lifted from Los Alamos? Okay?
Yeah.
What do you get? I mean, I'm going to tell you, you don't get millions, you get billions for that.
All you want.
You get billions for that. And the way that was glossed over, and these stupid stories about when we found the hard drives behind the Coke machine, well, how stupid did they think we are?
Yeah.
Look, I'm running out of time, but the seamless web here is very interesting, because we have McVeigh, apparently in league with Hussein al-Husseini, former bagman for Saddam Hussein.
Right. Yeah, and you've also got...
We got Terry Nichols.
Nichols hooked up with Abu Sayyaf in the Philippines.
Exactly.
Learning how to make bombs.
Yeah, exactly. His bombs didn't work till he went there and came back.
And by the way, what Jayna didn't say is that those guys who are still walking the streets are the bomb makers. I wonder what they're doing now.
Yeah.
The FBI hasn't even talked to them, and yet these are the guys that make the bombs. Good Lord.
And they're still out there.
Yeah.
They're still out there.
They're still out there.
And it's interesting, you mentioned to me about Salman Pak. I mean, we know terrorists were trained at Salman Pak.
That's right.
And, I mean, what? This isn't enough for the Democrat. I'll tell you what, these people are going to destroy this country trying to get their power back. They're going to destroy this country trying to get their power back. We
showed al-Husseini's picture to a former Iraqi captain who was at the training camps, the Iraqi training camps for terrorists.
Yeah.
We showed him the picture. You could see the recognition in his eyes. When you're a pro, you can see the recognition. He denied ever seeing him before, but I'm telling you, he knew him. Man, that is just amazing. And meanwhile, you get all those clowns out there jumping all over Condoleezza Rice and people like that. When there's something, if they really want to investigate, here it is. Oh, well, of course. I mean, look, they're never going to investigate the things that really need to be investigated. Right. Like, how come Vince Foster's dead? I'm waiting for CARE to start attacking Jayna. I'm ready for that one. Oh, the Council on Islamic, I'm waiting. They'll start. And of course they will. And I hope they do, because I'd like to get back. I'd like to debate those guys and show them the evidence. Yeah. And then we'll see if they're really Muslims, honorable American Muslims, or if it's just the same old thing. We're right, you're wrong. I'm still waiting for the Allah Bless America rally, and I ain't seen it yet. I haven't seen anything remotely resembling it. No. Anyway, the name of the book is The Third Terrorist. It's by Jayna Davis. Man, there's so much other stuff we could talk about if we had time here, David, but we'll have to do it on another day. I'm always available anytime you want, or I'm sure Jayna is. Well, thanks, and by the way, thank Jayna, and also say hi to your lovely wife, Jackie, okay? And you give Rose a hug for both of us. She wouldn't touch me. If she lets you that close. She wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole. All right, then give Loopy a hug. Yeah, that's it, or Bambi. All right, Bambi. We'll see you later, David. Thank you. All right, take it easy, Jim. Goodbye. David Shippers, prosecutor from the impeachment of William Jefferson Clinton, and Jayna Davis on the air this morning. Archives of this show will be available at War Room.